It began with a whisper from the edge of the galaxy, a cryptic signal laced with impossible data. A single message pulsed through subspace relays across the known cosmos. Earth is active. For 2,000 years, the birthplace of humanity was silent. Dead, most believed. Forgotten, others hoped. But now, something has awakened. Why did Earth go silent? What secrets were buried beneath its poisoned skies and shattered continents? And more importantly, why is it speaking now? The year is 14,907 Galactic Standard. In the core sectors of the Orion Arm, 12 dominant civilizations maintain a delicate balance, held together by ancient treaties, interstellar commerce, and an ever-present fear of extinction. Among them, the Korathi symbiosis, a hive-minded union of flesh and fungus, the crystalline intellects of the Threx Dominion, and the cold scribes of Eryx, who transcribe history as prophecy. All remember humanity as a chaotic footnote in galactic history. Powerful, yes, but ultimately self-destructive. When Earth vanished behind its black firewall, no ships entered, and none emerged. Within decades, the name humanity became myth. That silence became comfortable. Until last cycle, a deep space mining array orbiting the brown dwarf HD 18973, 3 bits intercepted a gravitational anomaly. The signal wasn't just unusual, it was handcrafted. Hidden within the wave's harmonic distortion were quantum-laced pulses, a message, human language. 16,247 symbols, one for each day Earth had remained silent. The message concluded with 3 words: "We are watching." Panic rippled through the galactic powers, not because they feared Earth would return, but because they remembered why Earth had vanished in the first place. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Right now, HFY ApexChronicles is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you enjoy unraveling the mysteries of the universe, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us grow this community together. In response to the signal, the Galactic Council convened an emergency assembly aboard the Arc Spire, an ancient, living station orbiting the Triumph star. There, envoys debated what few wanted to admit. If Earth truly survived, it could be the single most dangerous force the galaxy has ever known. Not because of its firepower, though that was legendary, but because of its unpredictability. Humanity had always thrived in chaos. Where other civilizations evolved within order and stability, humans adapted to ruin, war, and catastrophe. In the words of High Lexer Moralith of the Varn Ascendancy, to awaken Earth is to invite a storm that even stars cannot outshine. Yet the signal wasn't followed by ships. No war fleets, no envoys, no demands. Just silence. That was what made it worse. You see, in ancient times, long before Earth's isolation, humans mastered something the galaxy had only begun to scratch. Neuro-resonant command systems, ships that could be piloted by thought, weapons that fired with instinct, fleets that moved as one organism, not through AI, but through what humans called conscious sync. The last time a human fleet was seen, it melted a binary warfront in less than 20 minutes, without a single casualty. So when Earth went silent, most assumed they'd destroy themselves. And if not, the void had claimed them. But now, something has changed. From the outer rim of the collapsed Orc colonies, strange readings began appearing. Clusters of negative mass echoes, indicating movement without propulsion. Ships, perhaps, but unlike anything known. Entire star systems began to report shadow anomalies, fleets hidden in gravitational folds, impossible to track. Those who attempted to investigate disappeared. No one dared approach Sol directly. Even the most advanced stealth drones suffered quantum shredding within 5,400 miles of its heliosphere. The ancient firewall remained intact, but its surface shimmered now with silent defiance. Then came the second message, simple, brutal, and terrifying. You watched us fall. We remember. That was when everything changed. The galactic powers had heard the message. But more terrifying than the words themselves were the implications behind them. The silence from Earth had always been its greatest weapon, its most terrifying defense. Without a single ship or fleet leaving its orbit, humanity had mastered the art of disinterest, a power so subtle that it had once shielded Earth's secrets for millennia. But now something had stirred, and the galaxy was watching, unsure whether to embrace or run from the storm that was on the horizon. The Galactic Council was uneasy, but one voice rose above the others. Commander Vasher of the Threx Dominion. Known for his cold logic and unyielding pragmatism, Vasher was one of the few who openly questioned the power dynamics of the Council. He was a firm believer in containment and control, and the recent disturbance had pushed him to an unsettling realization. We cannot afford to dismiss this. Vasher's voice echoed through the assembly hall of the Arc Spire, a seat of power where every race in the galaxy had a say. We stand on the precipice of an ancient and volatile force. Humanity was not defeated by their war. They were hidden, no, exiled, and not by themselves. Do you understand the significance of that? The assembly fell into a tense silence. The Eric scribes, revered for their dedication to the preservation of knowledge, had long regarded the human race as an enigma, an intelligent species that rose, like the phoenix, from the ashes of their own self-destruction. They remembered humanity's wars, wars that had once stretched across entire star systems, pushing the known bounds of civilization. But they also remembered the dark history of their disappearance, a disappearance triggered not by an external force, but by a conscious decision, one made by the most powerful beings humanity had ever created, the Guardians of Sol. This secret society, an ancient order of human commanders and engineers, had foreseen the inevitable chaos humanity would bring to the galaxy. So they enacted a plan, a final solution to avoid galactic annihilation. They unleashed a series of devastating superweapons, wiped clean any trace of humanity's technological advances, and locked away the entire Sol system behind an impenetrable firewall. It was supposed to be an end, a permanent solution. But as the years turned into centuries, the memory of that decision had faded into myth. The Council had chosen to forget humanity. Now their silence was about to break the fragile peace of the galaxy. Commander Vasher's warning resonated with the Council. This silence. It's not a passive retreat. It's a strategic move. Humanity is watching us, waiting for us to make the first mistake. They've been quiet for thousands of years, but now they've sent a signal. They know everything about us. We don't know if it's to rebuild their civilization or destroy ours. But make no mistake, their silence has been as much of a weapon as any fleet they could send. A ripple of unease spread across the room. There was no denying it. Humanity had been preparing for something. And now, after centuries of isolation, they had broken the silence, sending a chilling message. We are watching. But why now? The most advanced tracking arrays, scattered across the galaxy, couldn't pinpoint the origin of the signal. The conventional understanding of subspace and quantum energy was turned upside down by what had just occurred. The only thing certain was that Earth, or whatever was left of it, was watching. The Korathi symbiosis, usually known for their soft-spoken strategy of adaptation and harmony, were the first to speak up. Their collective minds buzzed with concern, their shared consciousness rippling with indecision. The leaders of the hive had long held that no single species should have absolute power, yet humanity had once proven itself an unstoppable force, capable of reshaping entire worlds with nothing more than will and technology. Why would they wait so long? Asked High Lexer Morelith, the leader of the Varn Ascendancy. Surely Earth's silence has served its purpose. Why send a signal now? What has changed? The Council's experts debated for hours, suggesting theories ranging from the discovery of new weapon systems to some form of technological resurrection. But none could answer the key question: What had Earth become in the centuries since its disappearance? As the debate raged on, something sinister started unfolding across the galactic rim. Quietly, subtly, a new wave of phenomena began appearing, small at first, but growing in frequency and magnitude. Ships that would vanish into thin air, only to reappear at the edge of the system with no record of their arrival. Sensors that would detect strange energy fluctuations, then go silent, only to return with more unexplainable data. The Varn Ascendancy, known for their military prowess, initiated an investigation. What they found was even more chilling than the signal itself: a massive cluster of what appeared to be inactive warships. Ancient human design, with damage that suggested long-term stasis. These ships, however, were not just relics. They were alive. As if waiting for their commands, their systems dormant but prepared to awaken at the slightest provocation. By the time the investigation reached its height, it was clear. Earth had been hiding something far greater than anyone had anticipated. What if the warships weren't just dormant? What if they were only the tip of the iceberg? What if Earth had created an entire fleet? Or worse, an empire, hidden away beneath the surface of its dead, scorched planet? And who in their right mind would dare to disturb them? The unrest began spreading like wildfire. News of the hidden fleet, the dormant warships orbiting Sol, was whispered from one corner of the galaxy to the other. But it wasn't just fear that permeated the conversation. It was also fascination. There were ancient texts, forgotten relics, and half-completed blueprints scattered across the galaxy, detailing the might of Earth's lost technology. This wasn't just a war fleet. This was humanity's legacy, a testament to their unmatched ingenuity in weaponry and warfare. As the news reached the most powerful and far-reaching civilizations, alliances began to fracture. Leaders and generals from across the galaxy weighed in, debating whether Earth should be feared or revered. Some saw the return of humanity as a chance to renew old alliances, to learn from their forgotten technologies. Others saw it as an existential threat, the reemergence of a species so unpredictable and dangerous. Its return could destabilize everything the galaxy had fought to build. The Varn Ascendancy wasn't the only faction with an eye on the mysterious ships. In the far reaches of the galaxy, the Korathi symbiosis had already started preparing for the worst. Their network of fungus-linked minds had detected the disturbance. Their vast network of biocommunication picked up the signal as a tremor in the subspace, a ripple too large to ignore. The Korathi knew that humanity's warships weren't just technological marvels. They were weapons of pure instinct, created for the sole purpose of survival. While the Korathi specialized in their collective, symbiotic existence, the humans had created something fundamentally different. Machines powered by individual thought, bound together not through neural networks, but through the human mind's untapped potential. For the Korathi, this was terrifying. They, who could control entire worlds through symbiosis, saw humanity's gift for chaotic, independent thought as a deadly force. And so they prepared, building biosuits, improving their fleets, and activating their most powerful sentinels. Their entire strategy was now focused on one thing: how to confront humanity's return. In the galactic core, the Crystal Imperium, led by the Threx Dominion, also took notice. The Threx, a race of crystalline beings whose minds were as sharp as the edges of their bodies, had always seen themselves as the pinnacle of intelligent life. The return of humanity threatened to tear down their carefully curated status quo. They had no idea how they would face Earth's potential return. Humanity, after all, had always been unpredictable. And then there was the Erics. Their words, their visions, their prophecies. The Eric scribes were the historians of the galaxy, their data gathered through centuries of observation and chronicled in ancient scrolls. In their prophecies, Earth had always been depicted as the origin of great chaos, a force that would appear when the balance of power in the galaxy was in jeopardy. The ancient texts of the Erics spoke of a return, a reckoning, but they were vague, their warnings cryptic. They had long ago forsaken the idea of an empire, instead focusing on their historical role as keepers of knowledge. Now, however, their records began to pulse with new urgency. What had the scribes missed? What had they failed to foresee? The texts no longer spoke of a distant future. They spoke of the present, of a world they had dismissed as a mere legend, now on the verge of returning. Across the galaxy, strange and subtle changes began to ripple through the corridors of power. The galactic fleets, those formidable, well-oiled machines of war and diplomacy, were suddenly not enough. Experts were consulted. Strategists and tacticians from every race debated the looming threat. How would they defend against Earth's return? Would they even be able to? Meanwhile, within the heart of Earth's black firewall, something else was happening. Something far more significant than any of the galactic powers realized. Earth's systems, long thought to be dormant, were waking up. The Guardians of Sol, those ancient figures responsible for sealing away Earth's warfleet, had constructed the firewall not as a defensive barrier, but as a prison. A prison to ensure that Earth's destructive nature could never again threaten the galaxy. But the firewall wasn't impenetrable. It was designed to be sealed, permanently, until certain conditions were met. What the Council failed to understand, what no one could have predicted, was the intelligence built into Earth's security systems. The Guardians had implemented layers of defense, each more intricate and sophisticated than the last. Earth's defense mechanism wasn't merely technological, it was also organic, evolving in response to external threats. It had been programmed with one directive. If humanity was ever threatened, if its survival was ever in jeopardy, Earth itself would act, whether the inhabitants were aware of it or not. The first sign of this awakening came in the form of a subtle shift in the planet's magnetic fields. It was barely detectable, a slight change in the frequency of solar radiation. But when the Eric scribes, ever vigilant in their studies, caught wind of this anomaly, they sent their most advanced ships to investigate. They were the first to approach the Sol system since humanity had disappeared. And as they crossed the threshold of the firewall, they triggered something. A force, silent and terrifying, rippled through the stars. It wasn't an explosion, nor was it a direct attack. It was as if the entire system shifted, realigning itself with an ancient directive. The Eric ships, though fast and capable of evading conventional weaponry, began to slow down. Their systems began to glitch, as if they were trapped in an infinite loop of corrupted data. It wasn't technology failing. It was something far more sophisticated. Earth's ancient defense algorithms had adapted to their presence. No ship could enter the Sol system without being reshaped by Earth's will. In that instant, the rest of the galaxy realized the truth. Earth had not been dormant. Earth had been waiting for the moment to strike. The Guardians had known this day would come, but they were not there to witness it. Instead, Earth's last line of defense, an ancient program known as the Aegis Protocol, had begun to activate. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long, and Earth was ready to remind them just how wrong they were. The activation of Earth's Aegis Protocol was a moment that reverberated across the galaxy. It wasn't just a simple defense system coming online. It was an ancient, self-sustaining program designed to ensure humanity's survival in the face of impossible odds. Earth itself was no longer just a forgotten world. It had become an active, conscious player in the galactic game, and the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were beginning to realize the scale of their underestimation. The Aegis Protocol, which had lain dormant for centuries, was designed to adapt to new threats, evolve in response to the evolving galactic order, and protect Earth at any cost. The moment it was triggered, Earth's systems began to sync with the deepest corners of the galaxy's vast subspace networks, drawing from forgotten technologies, lost knowledge, and the sheer will of humanity itself. At first, the response was subtle. Small distortions in space-time began to appear around the edges of the Sol system. Ships attempting to approach were distorted, their navigation systems going haywire as they entered a field of subspace turbulence no one could predict or escape. It wasn't just an electromagnetic field. It was a field that warped reality itself, bending light, gravity, and time. On the surface of Earth, the remnants of humanity's most powerful warships began to come online. These were not mere vessels of war. They were living machines, designed by humans to think, adapt, and evolve. Ancient dreadnoughts, constructed from a blend of organic and synthetic materials, hummed to life, their systems glowing with a haunting greenish light. These ships had been dormant for centuries, hidden deep beneath the oceans and the ruins of long-forgotten cities. Now, they were awakening as if they had been waiting for a signal. And that signal, that hidden message in the galactic network, had come. At the helm of these warships were human minds, commanders and tacticians who had long since passed away, but whose neural patterns had been preserved within the ship's systems. These weren't mere artificial intelligences. They were vessels of memory, embedded with the experiences, knowledge, and instincts of humanity's greatest warriors. They had been waiting for the moment when they would be needed again. And that moment had arrived. On the other side of the galaxy, the galactic powers, still reeling from the first signs of Earth's awakening, were scrambling to respond. What had once been a distant memory, an abandoned world, was now becoming an insurmountable threat. A threat that wasn't bound by the usual laws of warfare. The Threx Dominion, the Crystal Imperium, had already sent their most elite fleet to the edge of the Sol system, hoping to gather data, to understand what was happening. But what they found was more than they could have prepared for. The ships, their advanced sensors unable to pierce the subspace anomalies, began to experience strange distortions in their own internal functions. Their crystalline hulls, strong enough to withstand the harshest of environmental conditions, were showing signs of wear, of instability. It was as if Earth itself had reached out to touch them, manipulating their very atoms. Even the mighty Threx fleet, with its superior technology and centuries of experience, found itself at the mercy of Earth's will. As they tried to retreat, they realized that escape was not possible. Every time they attempted to leave the Sol system, the space around them shifted, twisting as if it were made of nothing but shadows. They were trapped. Back in the heart of the Galactic Council, the once confident leaders of the galaxy now faced the terrifying reality. Earth had not only survived, it had become something far more than anyone could have imagined. The implications were staggering. What had once been a world of chaotic destruction and short-lived human empires had now turned into a formidable, unknowable force, a force that had learned to manipulate the very fabric of the galaxy itself. No one knew exactly how far the Aegis Protocol extended, but it was clear that its reach was infinite. It could warp entire star systems, redirect the flow of energy, and bend the laws of physics itself. No conventional fleet, no matter how advanced, could face the kind of power Earth had reawakened. And if Earth's intentions were hostile, the galaxy was powerless to stop it. The Korathi symbiosis, always the pragmatists, knew that the time for diplomacy had passed. They had long understood that their collective mind could take on any threat, but humanity's return represented something entirely new. If Earth truly had the ability to manipulate subspace, if their technology had reached such a level of sophistication, then the Korathi's own strengths, based on the fluidity of their shared consciousness, might not be enough to face what was coming. It was clear that Earth wasn't just hiding its fleet beneath its surface. It had been preparing a grand design, one that the galaxy had never seen. And the Korathi, for the first time in centuries, were uncertain. Would they be able to face this threat alone? Or would they need to ally with the very forces they had always viewed as dangerous, unpredictable, and untrustworthy? On the other side of the galaxy, the Varn Ascendancy was already making preparations of its own. Varn military commanders, known for their brutal efficiency and tactical genius, began to draw up contingency plans. If Earth's warships truly had the power to warp reality itself, then their strategy would need to shift. No longer could they rely on their traditional tactics of overwhelming firepower and sheer numbers. They would need to think in new terms, terms that no one had considered before. But amidst all the fear, the uncertainty, and the rising tide of panic, one question remained: what did Earth want? The message sent to the galaxy had been clear: we are watching. But the question now was, would humanity remain passive observers, or would they take action? What would Earth's first move be? And would the galaxy survive it? In the depths of the Sol system, Earth's war machines were stirring, rising from the depths of oceans and hidden chambers. They were not alone. And as they began to form ranks, humanity's once dead empire was slowly, inexorably, returning to its rightful place in the stars. But as Earth's fleet prepared to rise once again, the rest of the galaxy could only wait. And in that waiting, they knew one thing for sure: the time of humanity's silence was over. The galaxy was on edge, a powder keg waiting to ignite. Earth's reawakening had shattered the uneasy peace that had prevailed for centuries. No one, no species, no civilization, could have predicted this. What was once a distant, near-mythical threat had now become an undeniable reality, and its implications were too vast to fully comprehend. On the outer rim of the galaxy, the Korathi, the Varn, and the Threx Dominion were frantically preparing for what was to come. Their military fleets, some of the largest in the galaxy, mobilized with terrifying speed. Ships once thought to be the pinnacle of interstellar warfare were now racing to the edges of known space, but they all faced a grim truth. Earth was no longer just a world. It had become something far more dangerous, an entity capable of reshaping the very fabric of space and time. As the fleets moved toward the Sol system, an eerie silence fell over the galaxy. It wasn't the silence of an absence of activity. It was the kind of silence that only comes before something monumental, a silence that choked out all hope of a peaceful resolution, a silence that spoke of inevitable destruction, of the unleashing of forces no one could control. Back on Earth, the awakening of humanity's war machines was an awe-inspiring sight. The ancient warships, now reactivated, rose from beneath the oceans, their forms cutting through the water with terrifying precision. These were no ordinary ships. They were the products of a long-lost era, built using technologies that had long been buried, forgotten by the galaxy. The ships were a fusion of organic matter and advanced metal, their designs alien and unsettling, their engines powered by the unyielding will of humanity's forgotten leaders. Each ship was a living entity, a creation that merged human ingenuity with the deep, ancient knowledge that had been passed down through generations. These ships could think, adapt, and evolve based on the strategic needs of their commanders. They were not just vessels of war. They were sentient machines, capable of outthinking even the most advanced alien intellects. The first ships to rise from Earth's depths were the Leviathans, massive dreadnoughts that had once been the pride of humanity's naval fleets. They were enormous, each one the size of a small moon, and they carried enough firepower to obliterate entire planets. These ships had been hidden away, sealed in underground bunkers and oceanic trenches, waiting for the moment when they would once again be needed. That moment had arrived. With the Leviathans rising, the galaxy took its first real look at Earth's full military might. These ships were not just weapons. They were symbols of humanity's defiance, of their refusal to be erased from the galactic stage. They were a warning to all who might doubt humanity's power. Earth had been silent, yes, but it was never weak. As the Leviathans made their way to the edge of Earth's atmosphere, they weren't alone. Smaller, but no less powerful, ships began to emerge from the depths. Frigates, cruisers, and fighters that had once been part of humanity's vast interstellar fleet. They were streamlined, designed for speed and agility, and they carried advanced weaponry that could shred through the defenses of even the most formidable foes. These ships didn't just represent humanity's military might. They represented something far more insidious, the revival of a lost empire, one built on the blood and sacrifice of countless generations. The moment Earth's ships reached the outer edges of the Sol system, the Aegis Protocol activated in full. A ripple of energy shot out from Earth's core, sending shockwaves through the surrounding space. It wasn't an explosion. It was something far more terrifying. The laws of physics themselves began to warp and bend, as if the universe itself was reacting to the return of humanity. The first to feel the effects were the Korathi. Their massive bioengineered ships, capable of transmitting thought across entire star systems, began to experience severe disruptions. Their symbiotic consciousness, once the pinnacle of galactic unity, faltered under the immense pressure of Earth's new power. Minds that had once been connected through a network of spores and fungal tendrils began to lose their connection, one by one, as the fabric of space began to distort. The Varn Ascendancy, too, was caught off guard. Their war machines, formidable though they were ill-prepared for the kind of reality-altering force that Earth had unleashed. Their fleets, which had been advancing toward Earth's solar system with calculated precision, now found themselves struggling to navigate the subspace anomalies that had begun to proliferate in the area. Their once pristine ships began to lose their course, pulled into gravitational eddies that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. And in the distance, Earth's fleet, its massive dreadnoughts and agile cruisers, remained perfectly aligned, as if guided by an invisible hand. But it was the Threx Dominion that made the most significant move. The Threx had long seen themselves as the keepers of order in the galaxy, their crystalline form representing the pinnacle of logic and intellect. They understood the threat that Earth posed better than anyone. If humanity had truly regained control over its ancient warfleet, it meant that the balance of power in the galaxy was no longer theirs to dictate. The Threx Dominion was not a race that could afford to make mistakes. They could not afford to be caught off guard. The Threx began to rally their allies, sending diplomatic envoys to other galactic powers, attempting to create a united front against Earth's sudden rise. But their efforts were met with resistance. Many species had their own agendas, their own histories with humanity, and they were unwilling to band together against a force that had not yet revealed its intentions. It seemed that even in the face of this immense threat, the galaxy remained as fractured as ever. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the leaders of humanity were beginning to communicate with their warships. Through the vast neural network that had been built into the ships, commanders and strategists from humanity's ancient past were able to offer guidance. The warships were not just machines. They were extensions of the minds of humanity's greatest leaders, their thoughts interwoven with the ship's systems, their strategies long since encoded in the ship's programming. The warships began to speak, but not in words. They communicated through the raw data of their systems, through the sheer force of their will. Their messages were not threats, they were declarations. Earth was not coming to conquer. Earth was coming to reclaim its place. Earth was coming to remind the galaxy of its legacy. And as Earth's fleet assembled, the galaxy held its breath, uncertain of what would come next. Would humanity remain silent, or would it rise as it had once done, with an iron fist, to carve out its destiny among the stars? The galaxy braced itself for Earth's next move. The Sol system became a focal point, a region of space now teeming with an energy that had never before been seen. The awakening of Earth's warships was not just a military event. It was a cosmic phenomenon. The fabric of reality itself seemed to pulse with a strange, almost organic rhythm as Earth's ancient technologies began to hum to life. Inside the heart of Earth's most formidable warships, the Leviathans, something profound was happening. The ship's systems, once dormant for centuries, were sensing with a neural network of unimaginable complexity. These were not mere machines. They were sentient beings, alive in ways that defied the understanding of even the most advanced species in the galaxy. The minds of humanity's greatest leaders, generals, tacticians, and strategists, had been embedded in these ships, their memories preserved and digitized for use when the time came. But what Earth's enemies failed to realize was that these leaders weren't just waiting to be activated. They were evolving. The neural networks within the ships allowed them to adapt in real time, merging ancient human experience with the latest technological advancements. These ships were learning, growing, and becoming something more than the sum of their parts. As the Threx Dominion, the Varn Ascendancy, and the Korathi tried to organize their responses, they found themselves increasingly outpaced. Their fleets, massive as they were, couldn't seem to break the distortions that Earth had seeded around its solar system. As the subspace anomalies expanded, they realized the true extent of Earth's new power. Earth had not merely reawakened its warships, it had reawakened the very laws of physics around it. These distortions were not just limited to space and time. They were beginning to manipulate energy itself. At the outer edges of the Sol system, the first signs of Earth's growing influence became apparent. The massive Varn fleet, which had been one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy, found itself slowly pulled into a subspace anomaly as it attempted to engage Earth's defenses. Their flagship, the Varnka, a massive warship capable of decimating entire fleets with its singularity cannon, was the first to experience the terrifying effects of Earth's reach. As it approached the edge of the distortion, its massive engines began to stutter. The ship's communication systems shorted out, and its weapons systems failed to activate. At first, the Varn commanders thought it was a technical glitch, perhaps the effects of the subspace anomalies on their delicate instruments. But as the seconds stretched into minutes, their fear deepened. The Varnka began to drift, pulled by an invisible force. Its once pristine hull began to crack, not under physical force, but from the sheer destabilization of the space around it. The ship was being torn apart, not by weapons, but by the fabric of reality itself. The same phenomena were occurring throughout the galaxy. Every fleet that tried to approach the Sol system experienced the same issues. The ships would pass through an invisible threshold, just beyond the orbit of Mars, and their instruments would begin to fail. First, it was the sensors, then the navigation systems, and finally, even their communication networks began to break down. Ships that once could calculate the most precise trajectories were now stranded in subspace, unable to communicate with their homeworlds. The galactic powers, once so confident in their technological superiority, were now facing an enemy they could not even understand. They were fighting against not just a fleet, but the very laws of physics themselves. Earth, it seemed, had become a force of nature, a cosmic entity, a living planet capable of altering the reality around it. The Threx Dominion, their crystalline minds frantically analyzing the situation, began to realize the enormity of their mistake. They had believed that Earth's power lay in its warships, in its weapons, in its fleet. They had underestimated what humanity had truly achieved. Earth wasn't just powerful because of its ships. It was powerful because it had found a way to manipulate the universe at the most fundamental level. It could rewrite the rules of space, time, and energy, rendering all other technologies obsolete. And this revelation sent shockwaves through the entire galaxy. Desperate to find a solution, the Threx summoned the Council of the Galaxy's most influential minds, scientists, tacticians, and philosophers. The meeting was held in a space beyond time, where no laws of physics applied, a place where the galactic powers could theoretically discuss the situation free from interference. It was in this place that the greatest minds of the galaxy came to a terrifying conclusion. Earth's return wasn't just a military threat. It was a philosophical one. If humanity could wield such power over the very fabric of reality, then what were the limits of that power? Could Earth reshape the galaxy as it saw fit? Could it alter the fate of entire civilizations? In the absence of definitive answers, the galaxy's greatest leaders began to panic. Some suggested an immediate military strike, an all-out assault on Earth's warships. But others knew that such an action would only guarantee mutual destruction. Earth's power was beyond anything the galaxy had ever encountered. To engage Earth in a direct confrontation would be to invite annihilation. In the midst of these frantic deliberations, the Korathi, always the pragmatists, suggested something radical, a diplomatic solution. They had always believed in the power of collective consciousness, the merging of minds to find solutions to problems. Perhaps, they speculated, Humanity was not the threat they appeared to be. Perhaps, if they could understand Earth's intentions, if they could communicate with the sentient warships, there might be a way to avoid the coming catastrophe. The Korathi sent their emissaries to Earth's outer satellites, hoping to open a channel of communication. It was a daring move, one that many saw as a last-ditch effort to avoid an all-out war. But when the emissaries arrived, they found the communication channels strangely silent. Earth, it seemed, had no interest in negotiating. Instead, Earth's warships continued their silent march, each ship's movements a testament to a power that had no equal. As the galaxy waited, the question hung in the air. Was Earth coming to destroy the galaxy, or was it simply demanding recognition? The galaxy held its breath as Earth's warships, massive and imposing, continued their silent journey toward the heart of galactic civilization. With each passing day, more and more ships emerged from Earth's oceans, each one a living testament to humanity's legacy of conflict and survival. The space around Earth became a battleground not of ships, but of realities, where the very laws of physics bent and stretched in response to the presence of humanity's newly awakened power. On the edge of known space, the galactic powers continued to mobilize, each faction weighing their options. The Varn Ascendancy, once so confident in their supremacy, now found themselves scrambling to hold on to what they had, slowly realizing that no matter how many ships they sent, they could not outrun the growing distortion of space. Their once unified fleet was splintering under the pressure, their commanders unsure of their next move. The Threx Dominion, whose crystalline minds had once been the galaxy's most formidable intelligence network, began to lose faith in their ability to reason through the crisis. They had come to understand that Earth's technology was not simply a weapon. It was a fundamental reshaping of existence itself. The Threx leaders no longer debated whether Earth was a threat. They debated whether the galaxy would even survive this confrontation. Would Earth's return signal the dawn of a new era of galactic rule, or the end of an age of empires? But perhaps the most unexpected response came from the Korathi. As the last remnants of their fleet limped away from the Sol system, their leadership turned to the one thing that had always driven their people: the pursuit of knowledge. The Korathi had always believed that the key to survival lay in understanding the forces around them, and they were determined to understand Earth's new power. They had failed in their attempt at diplomacy, but they had not given up. Their scientists began to study Earth's subspace anomalies, hoping to uncover the secrets of the technology that could bend reality itself. They initiated a covert operation, one that would take them deep into Earth's abandoned colonies on the Moon and beyond, hoping to recover any remnants of the lost technology that had been buried for so long. Their efforts were not without danger. Earth's warships were not idle. They watched, they waited, and they acted with terrifying precision. Any ship that ventured too close to Earth's satellites was quickly intercepted and either destroyed or forced to retreat. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the Korathi discovered something even more chilling. They found that Earth's warships were not just machines. They were more than mere tools of destruction. The ships were alive, interconnected, and capable of learning. They were a species unto themselves, driven by an intelligence that transcended anything the galaxy had ever encountered. And at their core, the ships were guided by something far older and more mysterious than any of the galactic powers had ever imagined: the will of humanity. As the months passed, the realization spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Earth was not simply seeking domination. Earth's return was not about conquest in the traditional sense. It was a rebirth. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, erased it from the annals of history, but Earth had never forgotten. It had spent centuries in silence, gathering its strength, its knowledge, its power. Now, Earth was no longer a forgotten relic of a bygone age. It was a living, breathing empire, born again from the ashes of its past. But what did that mean for the galaxy? Humanity's intentions remained unclear. Were they coming to reclaim their place in the stars, to impose their will on the galaxy? Or was there a deeper, more fundamental purpose behind their return? What did Earth's message, its silence, its ominous awakening, really mean? And could the galaxy afford to ignore it any longer? As Earth's fleet crossed into the heart of galactic space, it made no attempt to hide its intentions. It was a direct challenge to the status quo, an unspoken declaration that the era of galactic dominance by alien civilizations was over. But humanity's message was not one of violence. It was one of consequence. The galaxy had two choices: to accept Earth's power or to resist it. In the shadow of Earth's power, the galaxy was left in a state of profound uncertainty. Warships that had once been the symbols of ultimate authority in the galaxy now stood on the precipice of irrelevance. Technologies that had been the pinnacle of innovation were now facing extinction, their weaknesses exposed by Earth's ancient, resurrected fleet. The very concept of what it meant to be a galactic power was beginning to shift, and no one knew what would emerge from this cataclysmic change. The question remained: could the galaxy unite against Earth's return, or would it fracture in the face of an unstoppable force? Across the vast expanse of space, alien leaders gathered in hidden chambers, formulating plans, some hopeful, others desperate. The once proud fleets of the galactic powers, now decimated and scattered, tried to regroup, but their minds were filled with doubt. What had once been a galaxy of united factions was now a galaxy of fear. At the heart of Earth's fleet, the warships continued to march forward. They were not rushing toward conquest. They were waiting. Earth's warships were patient, calculating. They were a slow-moving storm, building with quiet intensity, waiting for the galaxy to make its move. The silence that had defined humanity for so long had now given way to a profound statement. We were silent before, but we are not silent now. The galaxy was on the verge of an unprecedented shift, one that would redefine the balance of power, and perhaps even the very future of the universe. Earth was no longer a forgotten world. It was a force of nature. And now, the galaxy had to answer the question that had lingered in the air since humanity's return. What would Earth demand? As Earth's fleet moved ever closer to the heart of galactic space, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again.